Hey everyone, Anna from girlsonkey.com. We do videos about poetry for you guys. Today's video is about inspiration. What is it? How do we get it? And how do we ultimately keep it? Hey, so today we're talking about inspiration. Inspiration can be quite elusive and quite mysterious. So we're going to break down what it is and how do we get it, how do we keep it as poets. So inspiration, the word inspiration has within it the idea of breathing in the spirit, breathing in the divine spirit. That's where the word comes from in the ancient Greek. And so we talk about the idea of a divine inspiration, or inspiration coming from the universe, coming from God, coming from a spiritual source outside of ourselves that we breathe in. And so there's an idea of input and then output, as with breathing. And so often it's thought about waiting for some external source of a light bulb idea or a divine thought to come to you from an outside source, and then you receive it and you channel it and you output it. And that can be true, but it can also be untrue. So we want to think about what does it mean? So we often talk about I have to find my muse, and what does that mean? So in Greek mythology, there were 9 goddesses, 9 muses, and they were each responsible for a different area, such as literature, science, art, and they were thought of to be the protectors and the people who gave inspiration to those areas. And so when we talk about muse, that's where it comes from. It's also an idea of a spiritual guidance or spiritual input from outside of ourselves, this kind of mysterious force that we're waiting on. And so that can be a good idea at times if we want to meditate and we want to sort of think about what the universe or God might be telling us. But there are also easy ways to find inspiration in the mundane and the everyday things that are around us. And so I want to talk about 5 ways that we can become inspired for our work and how to kind of maintain that. And sometimes we don't need to maintain it, and I'll talk to you about that as well. So the first thing is that we need to fill the well. And Julia Cameron from The Artist's Way, which I've popped in the description, she talks about this a lot. She talks about what are we doing to infill, to inbreathe, to fill up our well. Obviously, when we've used up our inspiration, when we've outputted a lot, then we don't have anything to give. So we need to refill that, whether that be going to an art gallery, to a museum, to the bush, whatever inspires you personally, and writing about it, or kind of thinking about those things and filling up your mind with images. You might like to go online to a site like Pinterest, for example, which is a great site, or Google Images. Collect up images and ideas that are inspiring you at the time, and think about some of the topics or ideas that you're interested in exploring. So make a list of about 5 to 10 topics that you are finding really interesting at the moment, and then maybe just take a little bit of time to go online and explore those things, and just play with it. Don't have a set goal in mind. Just think about just reading for pleasure or exploring for pleasure, and then see what comes out of it. And so you might like to make a little art diary, which is like a journal with also drawing and collage in it, to kind of collect some of the things that you're finding, and just to take that time to collect ideas and thoughts. Journaling can be a great way of writing down what you've discovered during the day, so that you don't forget, because sometimes we get inspired but then we are busy with our day and we forget. So having a nice place to keep those things it's just a nice way to do it. The second thing is, don't hyperventilate and don't hypoventilate. So don't overbreathe or underbreathe, and we just want to think about the rhythm of our breathing, our input and our output. So if we are outputting a lot, for example, if we are teaching others, or we are performing on open mics, reading on open mics, or giving out our work in the form of just writing on a blog or something like that, that's our output, that's our out breath. So obviously with breathing, we need to breathe in and breathe out so that we don't make ourselves panicky. We need to have a good rhythm of in breathing and out breathing. So think about that. Think about, have I been breathing out a lot lately and having a lot of output and not much input? So maybe we need to rebalance on that side. Or the other way around, maybe we're feeling a bit overfull with all of this inspiration and ideas, and we don't know what to do with it. So we need to maybe take some time to actually package and output that stuff, whether that be creating a book, or reading on an open mic, or a blog, or whatever it is, to output the work. So the in-breath and the out-breath, thinking about the rhythm of that. The third thing is to recognize that there are seasons. So in the natural, it doesn't rain 24/7, and in our inspiration it's the same. We're not going to feel inspired 100% of the time. So don't feel down on yourself if you're not feeling inspired. Maybe you just need to focus on something else, and then your inspiration will come back when you're not as burnt out or not as busy or stressed. So think about your own life and think, what's on my plate at the moment, and maybe I don't need to stress or worry about not being inspired. Maybe I just need to take some time, have a holiday, do something else, focus on something else, and then come back to it. And that's fine. There are seasons in our lives, and we go through different times where we are getting a lot of input. So we go to a conference, and then there might be times with a lot of output again. So thinking about that and thinking, well, there are seasons, and yeah, today it's raining, I've got all the inspiration. Today there's a drought and I don't have much, but and often that can be hard when you are responsible for something particular. So for example, if you are required to submit something by a certain time and you don't have the inspiration, that can be a difficulty that we come across. And there is unseasonable weather, which we don't want when we're trying to work to a deadline. So what you can do about that is to think about what you're working on, and then to put the idea of inspiration altogether to the side and think, okay, well, I'm just going to approach this just like an assignment, really, and not think I'm not going to wait around for some lightning strike from God. I'm just going to go through the brief, and I'm going to tick each thing, even if it's just a mechanical thing. So I'm just going to go, what are the points on the brief that I need to hit, as I would with a uni assignment? I need to cover X, Y, and Z. I want to have it this many words, and just think of it in a real structured way as opposed to a spiritual way. And sometimes that can help. And then once you have the structure, then the other stuff might flow around that structure. So that's just one thought. It might not work for everybody, but maybe give it a try. Number 4 is be attentive, be mindful to the small seeds. So quite often our lives are just so busy. We run around and we all have a lot on our plates. And so mindfulness is about learning to tune into the moment. So one practice that is really helpful, take 5 to 10 minutes, you can take longer if you want, each day, just to think about what you are hearing, what you are seeing, and all of your other senses, and maybe even think about or write down what those things are. For example, I can hear a helicopter, I can see a blue cup, I can see a picture on the wall, my back hurts, whatever those things are, and make a list of them. And it just helps to start to bring you back down to earth and to ground you and your own present moment, so that you're actually aware of your surroundings, because quite often we miss the inspiration that is all around us because we're so busy and we're so distracted, and we're not thinking about what's happening in the moment because we're thinking about our shopping list, So take some time to practice mindfulness, and then when you later on you'll be able to see the small seeds that you can find. For example, you might be on the bus, you might overhear a conversation, a snippet, you might go, oh, that could make a good dialogue, or you might see someone's haircut and think that's a really interesting punk haircut you've got there, and that might inspire you as well. So be open to the mundane ways of receiving inspiration, because anything can be a springboard, anything at all. And so it's not just the big lightning strikes of inspiration that can result in an idea or a poem. It can be just the small seeds. And so I have a document on my computer where any just small ideas or lines, phrases or words, I just pop them in there. It's like a scrapbook. And then later I just come back and I've got things that I can draw from and think, oh, that might springboard into another idea. And there's no harm in having them there and not using them, because they're your seeds. No one sows every single seed that they have, but if you're collecting seeds, then you're more likely to have a beautiful garden, if we keep with that analogy or that metaphor. And so the last thing is to ruminate. Now, something quite gross that cows do is that they chew their cud. So they eat the grass and they chew it in such a way that it digests that grass and turns it into cow poo. And I stood in cow poo to warm my feet in New Zealand, and that was really gross. But yeah, So when we think about our output, maybe think about what you're ruminating on. What are you thinking about? What's on your mind? Have you got anxieties that you're thinking about that are taking up your thought space? Maybe you need to clear your mind, do some meditation, go on a holiday, go on a walk, and just think about how to just clear the decks. Whether that might be that you need to declutter your house, for example, or buy a fresh new journal or turn over a new page, something that's going to just give you a chance to then ruminate and to think about something fresh. So just maybe find like ways of springboards online, for example, or prompts that can sort of start a new process and start to digest some stuff. Because also sometimes when we aren't digesting properly, it's a gross metaphor, I know, then our output is not going to be ideal. Yeah, get my drift? So we're thinking about input and output, then maybe think about what you're ruminating on. Are you caught up with negativity? Are you caught up with the fear of what people will think about your work, and that's taking away from you being able to digest the inspiration that you've received? And so that's just something to think about. And so I hope that these points have helped. I'll just recap them. So the first one is to fill the well, take yourself on an artist date, and I'll put Julia Cameron's book in the link in the description. Number 2 was don't hypo or hyperventilate. Number 3 was recognize that there are seasons. Number 4 is be attentive, be mindful for the small seeds around you. And then number 5 was chew the cud. So I hope that these have been helpful. If you have any other ideas for videos or things that you'd like me to talk about, pop them in the comments below. What have you experienced? Have you experienced writer's block where you've suddenly had a burst of inspiration, or do you just find that you're generally you always have enough ideas? Like what is your experience of inspiration? Pop that in the comments and we'll have some discussions down there. And yeah, I'll see you next Friday in the video.